Hello everyone and welcome to today's SANS webcast, the latest on WannaCry ransomware. My name is Carol Auth of the SANS Institute and I will be moderating today's webcast. Today's featured speakers are SANS instructors Jake Williams and Benjamin Wright, and Renato Marinho, Chief of Research at Morphus Labs. If during the webcast you have any questions for our presenters, please enter them into the questions window located on the GoToWebinar interface. Please note that this webcast is being recorded, and a copy of the slides and recording of this webcast will be available for viewing later today and can be found on the SANS registration page. And with that, I'd like to hand the webcast over to Ben.
Thank you, Carol. Those of you who know SANS well know that I'm the legal guy, and today I'm not here really to talk very much about law. One of the hats that I wear at SANS is that I am the chairman of the Data Breach Summit. And we held that summit first in Chicago back in August, and we'll hold it again in September and October. And in the course of running the Data Breach Summit, we reach out around the world and try to find experts on different kinds of cyber crises. And one of the things that we've found in running this summit is that we've met Renato Marinho, who is a malware security expert in Brazil. We've already been talking to him about discussing fighting ransomware in Brazil when he comes to speak in Chicago at the summit. And so it's very timely that we've been able to invite him to join us today along with Jake to discuss what have been the experiences with respect to WannaCry. I know some people call it WannaCrypt, and there may be other words out there that people use to define this. But most of today will focus on the experiences of Jake and Renato and sort of evaluate where we are as of right now with respect to that this particular attack. I ask here, is it a postmortem, meaning is this thing over? I don't know. Maybe that's part of what we're going to talk about, or is it, will there be additional waves of something like this WannaCry ransomware? We'll be talking about that. Please note that Jake did provide a webcast that has been recorded. You can go listen to this, and that was as of late on Friday. That was in the heat of battle, so I imagine that Jake has probably learned a few things since then that he's going to be sharing with us. So my role primarily will be sort of a master of ceremonies and help to make sure the questions are answered. But we'll start with Jake, and then we'll may take a couple of questions after Jake's formal presentation. Then we'll invite Renato to provide his formal remarks, and then we'll take some Q&A at the end. So with that, I'll pass it over to Jake.
Hey Ben, thanks so much. I'm really excited to be here. You know, I as you mentioned, I did the webcast quote in the heat of battle on Friday night. Certainly, we know a whole lot more about it now than we did then. But just to kind of catch everybody up, if you're just getting into the swing of things, there are two key components to this ransomware. There's a worm, and then there's actually a ransomware package, and these are completely separate. The ransomware, or sorry, the worm itself is what uses the kill switch, the domain kill switch that we've heard so much about in the media, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about that here in a few minutes. I'm sure that'll continue to evolve as well. But the ransomware package itself is actually basically a completely separate resource in the worm, and it's one of those things that it almost looks like it was built modularly, now whether this is done because somebody wanted to swap out the payload later, or whether it was done because that was the easiest way that the attackers could figure out how to do it is unclear. But again, it's very modular, where it's trivial for anyone with even a basic level of knowledge to swap out the payload and use the worm to continue propagating that payload. So the kill switch that we've heard so much about, kill switch domain, actually operates on that worm piece. The worm appears to be spreading using a leaked NSA exploit named Eternal Blue, which installs a backdoor in SMB. It's actually quite fascinating. the backdoor. I don't have time to cover it here, but definitely go read up on that if you're deep into the tech, because it actually patches the way that SMB works, uses some non-standard functions in SMB. Really, really impressed here. So here again, spreading using those exploits, but basically, again, we're looking at just eternal blue and double pulsar being used to move the package around. So the malware has a kill switch that terminates if a particular domain resolves. We're not sure why this is here. It may have been anti-analysis, but I don't think it's anti-analysis. I think really what we're looking at most likely was that the attackers were looking to make sure that they had a way to shut down the malware. Again, it could have been anti-analysis. Sometimes in our analysis sandboxes, our malware sandboxes, we set up fake DNS servers and fake web servers, and very commonly, in fact, we teach this in the SANS 610 course, where we explain how to set up fake DNS and a fake web server. Well, I guess technically a real web server, but fake DNS, and it will resolve anything, any domain, back to the web server so that we can see how the malware would interact with the web server. Given that this is something that we see a lot in malware sandboxes and a common malware researcher technique, it's possible that this was used to prevent. Basically prevent the worm from doing anything nasty inside of a malware analysis sandbox. So as far as kill switch domains, there's more than one of these at this point. We're looking at now, there's been a total of four different domains that have been identified. All of them have been registered. One of the things that we've noted, a couple of our clients came in and said, hey, we're employing, and I'm not going to name and shame any vendors here, but they're using firewalls and other technologies that are blocking access to these domains. They say, hey, these are associated with malware, therefore we should block access to these. Don't do that. In order for this to be effective, the malware, the way the kill switch works, the malware actually has to reach out to these domains and receive an HTTP 200 response code. So basically a success response code. If they don't reach out to these domains, if they don't receive that response code, then the malware continues to propagate. Well, obviously, you don't want the malware to continue propagating. Hence, blocking access to these domains is exactly the opposite of what you want to do. Right?
Jake, this has been. We got a comment that says, slow down just a little bit. And yeah, I know you're excited and I'm excited too, but that's probably a good piece of advice. So just,
well, in that case, I'll do that exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, I am absolutely excited about this, and I had a lot to cover, but I will definitely slow down a little bit. I apologize. You know what it is? I'm still on the West Coast over here, and I'm just amped up on my morning coffee, right? So usually you catch me a little bit later in the day, and I'm a little bit slower, but yeah, again, I'll slow down a little bit here. The key here is you can't block access to these domains. If you're blocking access to these domains, you're doing exactly the opposite of what you want to do. Again here, the malware only functions, only the kill switch only functions if the malware can reach these domains. So if you're using a firewall or a proxy or whatever in your network, by the way, the malware is not proxy aware. And so if you have an explicit proxy configured and the malware tries to reach out, of course it doesn't know about your proxy, it can't touch these. So we've been issuing two pieces of guidance to our customers. One, check these domains and make sure you can actually get to them. If you can't get to these domains, your malware can't get to the domain either. If the malware can't get to the domain, it continues to propagate. So check these internally in your network. If you can't get there, if you can't open up a web browser and get to these, neither can your malware. It's possible that you can get there in your browser, but you have an explicit proxy configured in your browser. And again, your malware is not going to be able to know or doesn't know about the proxy, and again, it can't get there. If you have proxies configured, and honestly, in any enterprise environment, you should have a proxy configured, then again, if that's the case, then I would go ahead and set up an internal server, internal web server to handle requests to these domains and point your DNS to that DNS server to that web server. And again, that will stop the malware from propagating if it somehow gets into your environment. I mean, we hope at this point it's not getting into your environment, but that's not a bet that I'm willing to take. All right, so I suspect that there are machines that have been infected with this, particularly BYOD and mobile workforce machines, laptops that have gone home have become infected. and somebody or at Starbucks become infected, or wherever it is that you do work become infected, you bring these back into the enterprise, and some of these unpatched machines in the enterprise just get knocked over like wildfire. So along that lines, again, don't block access to the domains. That's kind of the TLDR there. Too long didn't read. And I'm waiting on my slide to advance. I apologize. Sometimes these are slow, particularly when we get a lot of people on the webcast. Sometimes it's I've noticed slow to advance. So give me just a second here, and we'll get advanced. Hey, Carol, can you advance me here? I don't think this is. There we go. It's finally advancing. I'm seeing the update now. So sample appeared in the wild without a kill switch configured, and I actually wrote more about this on our website, some technical analysis. You know, from the get-go, we said it would be trivial for somebody to change the kill switch domain or completely remove the kill switch. Obviously, that's a concern to us. We actually have observed a package in the wild that had the payload, had the kill switch removed, so it's propagating. But what's very interesting about this is somehow in modifying the kill switch, the attacker modified something else in the payload and broke the payload. So it turns out that this, what would have otherwise been a worst case scenario, the malware without the kill switch enabled, is, although it's propagating, it's not infecting hosts, and that's really the key here, right? So if you're looking for any more technical info, you can follow that bit.ly link. I know people hate bit.ly links, but you know, for folks that are trying to write down links, I much prefer these because, you know, again, much easier later when you have all the technical info. I know it's easier to click a link, but here definitely easier to write down. So I promise you, I would never redirect you somewhere malicious. Again, we wrote up more information about the no kill switch variant of the malware on our website. So the gentleman who originally reverse engineered the malware and registered the kill switch domain is a researcher out of the UK named Malware Tech Blog. I actually had a chance to meet him at DEF CON last year. He's actually a really cool guy. He prefers to remain anonymous. Some of the folks in the UK media have not exactly been honoring his requests, but in any case, he is now receiving free pizza for a year from Let's Eat UK. So they tweeted that out this morning that superheroes deserve pizza. He's actually a surfer as well, and so they mentioned, you know, the fact that he's a surfer. But anyway, they gave him a free year's supply of pizza. And Carol, is there any chance you can advance slides for me? I'm getting a little spinny wheel of death over here, and my slides just are not advancing.
Hi, Jake. This is
Carol.
Yep.
I'm not sure
Sorry.
I'm the only one. I couldn't hear you for a little while.
Oh, I may be dropping out. I'm not entirely certain where I'm at here. I've got. Is there any way you can advance a couple of slides for me?
Sure.
I'm getting a little spinny wheel of death over here. And,
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to do that for you.
This has happened twice when we've had lots and lots of people on a webcast. So it's I don't know whether it's a Mac GoToWebinar or not sure. In any case, if you can help me out with our technical difficulties, I'm definitely not infected with WannaCrypt. I know that much.
That's
so,
you know, I'm not sure which slide that is then.
Yeah, if you can just pop me up to staying safe would be ideal.
Okay,
so,
staying safe.
Perfect.
We're there.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, great. Okay, so, you know, at this point, it goes without saying that you should patch immediately if you haven't done so already. Right? I mean, Microsoft released this patch in March, and I don't want to get ranty here about patches, but patch cycles of 60 days or more are just not acceptable. You know, it's 2017. Patch management has been on the SANS, you know, critical security controls now for a long time. And I'm not pumping SANS 20 critical security controls, although they work. But we really need to move the ball forward here. And unfortunately, that's just not happening here with patches. And we're seeing that. We've been doing it rendition. We've been doing my company Rendition InfoSec. We've been doing internet-wide scans for double pulsar, the backdoor that gets dropped with Eternal Blue, since it was released by the shadow brokers back in April. And we've constantly been floored, one, by the number of machines listening on SMB directly on the internet, and two, by just the raw number of machines that have been exploited. Our high watermark was about 150,000 that were actively infected with double pulsar. Now, it's important to note that double pulsar disappears on reboot. So what's likely happening is the attackers are exploiting, the double pulsar gets installed, and then they use basically they use that as an access method to install long-term permanent malware. So this is something that we expect to see. I would say I expect to see more of in the future. And so the idea that we don't have patches or people haven't patched, I can't say that I'm surprised. In 2016, really we saw the first hard drop-off during our penetration test in the number of machines we could exploit with MS-08067. That's the vulnerability from Configure from 2008. All right, so 2008 to 2016 is when we saw the hard drop-off of being able to get into network. I was confident all the way through 2015 and confident meaning I would happily bet you money that when I got into a network, inside the network, I would be able to exploit something with MS-08067. I was just confident, and with good reason, consistently we could do it. So what you do need to know is that previously Microsoft said we're not releasing any more patches for XP or Server 2003. Even when the MS-1710 patches, which is what patches the Eternal Blue exploit, even when these came out, Microsoft didn't release these to anybody but the folks paying for long-term support for XP or Server 2003. And we can talk about whether or not that was reckless another day, but Microsoft turned tail late Friday night, early Saturday morning, and released patches for XP and Server 2003. What's really interesting, if you want to put your tinfoil hat on about Microsoft, is that they had compiled the XP patch in February. February is the first time in history that Microsoft has missed. Well, I say history, since they began doing Patch Tuesday, it's the first time they missed a Patch Tuesday. Right, so first time they missed a Patch Tuesday. XP patch was compiled in February. I'm interested to know, and this might be a good question for Ben. Ben, what do you think about this? Does Microsoft have any, just as a lawyer, kind of a lawyer's aspect, do you think they have any obligation here or any, I know it's out of patch maintenance, but does the fact that they compiled the patch in February and then released it only after people started getting harmed, is there a liability thing there?
Well, anybody can sue Microsoft and try. On the other hand, Microsoft probably has some pretty strong defenses that say that we're not obligated to do these things. Furthermore, their end user license agreement absolves them from liability, and so it's just not been very successful to try to sue Microsoft or someone like Microsoft under these end user license agreements, even though they've got some kind of vulnerability, even if they know the vulnerability. So the answer is good luck suing Microsoft. Have fun. Lots of people have tried to sue people like Microsoft over the years and not had a whole lot of success.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I would have guessed, but it was just kind of interesting to me, like if I'm Microsoft, forgive me here, and I'm not putting my tinfoil hat on or anything, but if I'm Microsoft and I'm going to go ahead and push the patch for XP or Server 2003, I'm going to go ahead and recompile it that day and then go ahead and send it out, right? So that somebody like me, researcher-wise, doesn't look at the metadata and say, when was this compiled? Back in February. Why did you wait until now to release it? Just from a PR standpoint, that seems like a missed opportunity on public relations. Opens up a lot of questions. But Ben, I think of course, I trust your legal opinion here, and I think you're probably right. Good luck suing anybody with a much bigger legal team than you. So, Carol, can you advance my slides again? I apologize. It's just spinny wheel of deathing over here.
We're on staying safe too.
Perfect. So for systems that can't be patched, consider network segmentation. We actually talked about this in the news we had a good article written in, I think, IT World, if I'm not mistaken, and we talked about how Server 2003 was never going to be patched again. You need to isolate your networks. We're working with a Fortune 50 company right now that has more than 2,000 Windows Server 2003 boxes inside their network, and they have no plans to update them. There's not even it's, again, even with these vulnerabilities released, they just said, yeah, no. They said, we understand the problem, but we need to find ways to keep these machines safe. The cost of upgrading these and making the software that runs on these run on a new version of Windows 2008 and later, they said is simply unacceptable. We're just not doing it. And this is an interesting risk decision. I'm sure that there's probably some liability that comes along with that, potential consumer liability or whatever, which of course, again, Ben knows way more about than I do. But I really like the idea there where they've done a full risk analysis and they've just said, look, we can isolate these machines. There has to be a way to protect these machines from attack while getting the most out of or continuing to get use out of them, even if we can't get new patches. One of the things that we tell clients all the time, and people argue with me on this, I tell this to every SANS class, no matter what SANS class I'm teaching, as we talk about defense in depth and just security in general, there is never a legitimate reason for one workstation to talk to another workstation using SMB. And people have argued with me about this for years. But listen, if you have this as a requirement, there is a network architecture failure, meaning somebody has failed to properly architect your network. Now, people tell me, Susie's workstation runs the database for this, one-off application that we use in an HR or legal or whatever. Fine, then it's not a workstation, it's a server. And it needs to be architected as such, and it needs to be protected as such. It needs to be put in the appropriate area of the network. Again, there's never a legitimate reason for one workstation to talk to another using SMB, period. If you're running file services, print services, database, app, you name it, and somebody else needs to talk to you over server message block, again, you're not in the right place. You need to move it. Wow, apparently now all my mouse clicks are catching up. Can you move me back, Carol?
Sure.
Awesome. Can you put me on 3? Staying safe 3.
We're there.
Awesome. Okay, so here are my advices here, right? So pieces of advice: restrict TCP port 445. This is SMB. 139 as well, honestly, right? 139 is old SMB. 445 is new SMB. Restrict it to where it's absolutely needed. Use router ACLs to do this, right? So router access control lists to do this. In order for you to do this, of course, you have to first segment these machines onto their own dedicated subnets so that communication between one machine and these vulnerable machines passes through a router. All right, so I want to restrict that traffic only from the hosts that need it to the hosts that need it. Let me come back to the example of I'm running an app server off of my workstation. I want to move that into the data center, and I want to put that on a subnet, and I actually want to control access to that specific app server from the IP addresses that need it. Now, this is complicated with DHCP. I understand the complication, but really we're talking about security here. Another thing that we recommend to people is to use private VLANs. These private VLANs prevent workstations from talking to other workstations at the layer 2. This isn't even a host-based firewall. This is way better. This makes attackers' jobs much, much harder and causes them to make lots and lots of noise. If your edge switches don't support this feature, buy new edge switches. Right? Again, this is an enterprise feature. You should be in an enterprise using enterprise switches. If you're a Soho shop or an SMB here, I guess being ambiguous, if you're a small, medium business and you don't have enterprise features on your switches, then you at least use host-based firewalls to limit communication on TCP port 445, particularly, again, between workstations. I understand that administrators use this feature a lot. That's fine. You can configure access to SMB, to the TCP port 445, to the workstations. Configure access so that it can only come from the administrative machines. Can you advance me to the other slide? Perfect. So for machines that can't be patched, my company put together a tool called Tearstopper. There's a mutex in the malware, the actual ransomware itself. Ransomware or anything that propagates via worm will usually set up one of these mutual exclusions in memory. And the idea here is that once this mutex is held by something, by some process, it can't be held by other processes. If you think about how ransomware is working, it's encrypting files, right? And think about the fact that the worm might hit the same machine again, might infect that machine, and drop the ransomware package a second time. If that happens and the ransomware is already encrypting your files, it starts encrypting the files again, right? They would be unrecoverable, right? Now, in this case, your files are unrecoverable anyway. It turns out that nobody that I know that's paid in this particular ransomware case has gotten their files back. One of the reasons for this is normally ransomware creates per victim Bitcoin addresses. So there's an easy way for the attacker to verify who exactly has paid and who hasn't. In this case, people are paying, but they're paying to a set of, I believe now there's 4 or 5 different Bitcoin addresses in play, not unique Bitcoin addresses per victim. Well, the attackers are now having to go manually try to deconflict, and I've talked to folks that have tried to chat with the attackers, and honestly, if I'm these attackers in particular, I'm going dark, right? So I'm not really out there. I'm not looking to be caught at this point. They've ticked off some pretty high-level people, including the Russians, the U.S., and the U.K. So, can you advance me again, Carol?
We're good.
Awesome. So tracking the perpetrators. There's theories that WannaCry authors lost control of the worm while it was still in testing mode. Look, if you've got a worm exploiting a 0-day vulnerability or a largely unpatched vulnerability, and again, I'm not speaking for any of my clients here. I just know historically how long it has taken to get patches out. And I expect this to be another one of those where I can bet you money I will find vulnerable hosts for years to come, at least 4 or 5 years to come on internal networks. By the way, I challenge all of you out there to prove me wrong, right? I hope that I'm wrong. I just don't think I am based on history. Again, there's theories that just based on how rudimentary the ransomware was, that they lost control of it. They were still in testing mode on an internal network and let it out. They didn't mean to, and now they're trying to play catch up. And this is kind of interesting because, Carol, if you can advance me to the next slide here, the kill switch domains that are registered, or the original kill switch domain, would have always called out to the internet, right? There would have been a request for it. Even though the domain wasn't registered, there was still a DNS request that was made. And that would have ultimately gone all the way back up to the TLD, top-level domain servers, DNS servers. And they would respond ultimately with an NX domain, no such domain error code. Well, Nicholas Weaver, basically posited, he said, look, NSA probably has enough signals intelligence, passive network capture to go find patient 0 on their passive DNS. And what he's referring to here, the XKS, refers to some of the leaked Snowden documents, this system called XKeyscore, which is according to the documents at least, basically a bunch of passive network intercept. And he says, hey, we can use this to go find the initial infections, right? Nicholas has the assumption, as do many, I say assumption, has performed the analysis and believes that, as do many researchers, that the initial 0 patients were located somewhere in Russia or Eastern Europe. So what he's saying here is that because it hit the Russians so hard, and they tend to handle things in a pretty interesting way, he says, hey, why don't we go, basically, why don't we go find patient 0, looking at any passive intercept that we have, and use that to notify the Russians and let them know, basically, this is where it started, and let them conduct their own investigation. So I don't know if you agree with this or not, but it's definitely an interesting, proposition. Right? So Carol, if we can advance me again. Okay, so Microsoft actually published a response and this morning, and they're taking NSA to the woodshed about stockpiling vulnerabilities. Earlier at RSA, the RSA conference this year, Microsoft proposed a digital Geneva Convention, or a cyber Geneva Convention. Now, there are tons of problems with this, and in fact, we actually came back and published that last link down there, and the more info here is basically a link to where we talked about why it was such a big deal, why the Cyber Geneva Convention was unlikely to be a thing that works. And honestly, if you think about the real Geneva Convention, it all comes down to attribution, right? If somebody commits an atrocity, there needs to be some way to figure out who committed that atrocity or who broke the Geneva Convention. In fact, this is so well acknowledged that people not in uniform don't get Geneva Convention protections. And the reason for that is, of course, the need for attribution, connecting the particular act to the actor. we have a huge problem with that in cyber. I just got done teaching the threat intelligence course for SANS, and again, we talked a lot about attribution and how hard that problem is. We're even looked at some examples of possible what we call cyber false flag operations, where it appears that one actor tried to blame an attack on another actor. We saw this with a Russian operation a number of years ago, or an operation largely attributed back to Russia, where they hacked TV Monde in France. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation on that, but they did so under the flag of, quote, the cyber caliphate, with supposed ties to ISIS. Right? It's pretty well understood at this point that was not ISIS. It wasn't a cyber caliphate. It was almost certainly, based on additional analysis, was almost certainly Russia, but trying to perform that false flag op. So the Cyber Geneva Convention and the whole idea about stockpiling vulnerabilities, the NSA Woodshed link there is how you can go find Microsoft's response. And then before this happened, right? So early in the week, Microsoft could have done much better press for me, on this whole idea here. I put together a blog post over at Rendition about the need for Microsoft to really answer some questions about MS-1710. And again, that's the vulnerability that Eternal Blue exploits. The MS-1710 petition basically was a petition to asking people, or asking Microsoft specifically, to disclose information about MS-1710 and why that information was critical to, and understanding that information was critical to the information security community. Whether or not you want to sign a petition or get involved with that, go read the documents there, and I think you'll see that at least just from an interest standpoint, go check that out. I think you'll see that there's some really compelling reasons for overall global information security, for Microsoft to be a little bit more transparent in how this particular vulnerability was handled. Next slide, please. And so the shadow brokers came out overnight. Shadow brokers are the folks that still unattributed group, although some of us have strong feelings about where they're from. But the shadow brokers, came out overnight, and they said, look, we promised more carnage. They originally released Eternal Blue, and that's what we used in WannaCry. They posted a note saying that they have more exploits to release, and they're not patched. Now, for history, and I cover this in the MS-1710 post on my website, for history's sake, it's important for you to know that in January, the shadow brokers released a file listing and some screenshots showing some specific exploits that they had. We're going to go ahead and capitulate here that these are probably truly NSA's exploits. At the time that this happens in early January, then you would assume that NSA or somebody in NSA contacted Microsoft and said, hey, FYI, we found some vulnerabilities. We've been actively exploiting them for some time, and now we know that the shadow brokers have them and are likely to release them. Now, again, the exploits themselves are not released, but there are screenshots and file listings showing the actual names of the exploits. So someone in the know would be able to turn around with these and then push that back to Microsoft and say, here are the vulnerabilities. So as we look at this January, then February, we missed Patch Tuesday for the first time ever, and then in March, these exploits, these vulnerabilities get patched. Why is this important here for the shadow brokers stuff? Well, the shadow brokers claim they have additional 0 days, that the 0 days they released were from a leak in or a dump in 2013, but that they have more current data that is not, or more current exploits that are not yet patched, that they would release without any heads up, right? And they kind of allude to how they gave the industry a heads up before this whole thing started, right? So again, we think there's more to come here. I think personally there's more to come. Go take a look at this just from a situational awareness standpoint. Even if you patch now and you're like, hey, all that network segmentation stuff that Jake said, we don't need to do any of that. You totally do, right? It's good defense in depth. It was good before WannaCry. It's going to be good after WannaCry. The one thing we know is that we're going to find additional vulnerabilities out there. We want to make sure that we're ready for those. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's another assertion here that WannaCry was not the first. Dan Gooden this morning reported in Ars Technica that another group used a worm with Eternal Blue to infect machines with crypto mining malware. This is fascinating. This flew under the radar. We saw a couple of exploits on our honeypots, but nothing that appeared systematic. and definitely nothing that was warming. But he said that, he said basically that they had a worm that used Eternal Blue to infect machines with crypto mining malware. Definitely fascinating there as well. Another report, and Dan kind of references this in his report on Ars Technica, suggests that WannaCry, the specific malware in WannaCry, may have a code reuse and then links to this Lazarus APT group. And depending on which analysis you read, this either points back to Vietnam or much more likely North Korea. So again, really, really interesting here. My personal belief is North Korea, by the way, but based on the analysis that I've read to date. But I know there are some researchers out there that are still kind of on the fence about that. In any case, this is really fascinating. I think the TLDR here, right? So the long-term thoughts are one, segment your networks, right? Again, if you haven't done this yet, the time to do this is now. Shadow Brokers is promising another dump within the next 90 days. They promise that they have exploits that or vulnerabilities that have not been patched, and Microsoft will not get advance notice. This is different from the disclosure of normal vulnerabilities, right? If we have a researcher that discloses a vulnerability, there's always a time that it takes researchers to weaponize that vulnerability. In this case, you're seeing weaponized exploits being dumped directly onto the market. I'm quite frankly surprised. I said this the other night. I stand by this. I'm quite frankly surprised that it took this long to get this out, right? Meaning I'm surprised that it took this long, from almost a month, in fact, between the time that the exploits were released in weaponized form until we saw the first worm. Anyway, so again, this should be your call to action. I believe it's Rob Lee that was originally quoted saying, "Never let a good breach go to waste." And if I'm quoting the wrong person there, I apologize. Regardless, I stand by that. If you're working with industry right now, never let a good breach go to waste. This is how you are going to get funding from your COO or your CFO to go in and make the changes that you need to make your network more secure for the next one. And with that, Ben, I'm going to kick it back over to you. Any questions you want to handle now, or do you want to hand it over to our third presenter?
Jake, thank you very much. And you're getting a lot of positive feedback from the audience here. I'm going to ask one question and we'll pass it over to Renato. Tracy asks, I understand the malware propagates through the SMB vulnerability once within a network, but I'm still not clear about the initial infection vector. What is it?
Right. I'm not sure that we know. There's been a lot of rumor about the malware being passed through documents in spear phishing or just phishing in general. We don't have a single example, and if anybody has an example of this, please hit me up. I'm Malware Jake on Twitter. My DMs are open. If you have an example of a phishing document that shows basically this malware is distributing this malware. My personal belief from having done lots of scans, internet-wide scans, is that this likely propagated initially on the internet. Once it hits an internet-facing host, it's then able to pivot internally in the networks. And I think that's how you're seeing it inside of a lot of internal networks, is just machines that were exposed to the internet on 445. And I'll note, by the way, too, that even if you don't have one exposed to the internet, one of your business partners may, and you may have a B2B, business-to-business VPN with them. We've seen that be a source of attack in the past. So now would be a good time to kind of look at those as well. Bottom line, I don't have a single example of a phishing document being used to distribute this. My thought is that that's not actually the infection vector. If you have one of those, please send it over to me.
Very good, Jake. We now turn to Renato from Brazil. He has been dealing with this incident for at least one client, maybe more, in Brazil. So, Renato, go ahead. Renato, have you clicked unmute? We're not hearing from Renato.
Yes, Renato, I think you're muted. If you could click to unmute, please. Ben, I'm not sure if he's there, yeah, but maybe you want to move to a couple of the questions while we wait and see if we can get him going.
All right.
Presently, are we on the correct slide, though? I'm not sure.
I think that's his first slide there.
Okay, great.
But Renato, it's the little microphone button
Go ahead and ask a
up toward
couple
the top.
questions, Ben. I see that he has dropped.
All right. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. There's a lot of questions, and I'm trying to get to figure out which ones are the better ones here. This one says, ICS asset owners who rely on isolation will ask the following question, Jake. It says, is there anything unique about how this worm propagates that it would be more likely to jump the air gap than other stray malware? You got that, Jake? Jake,
It looks like Jake is muted. Perhaps he's having trouble with his mute button as well.
Yeah. Jake, you need to unmute.
Jake, maybe you would like to switch to telephone?
Let's see.
Ben, I'm going to go and see if Renato has rejoined.
Yes. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We may be having problems with the fact that we've just exceeded the capacity of this system, or we pressed the system to its capacity. And unfortunately, I'm just a lawyer, guys, as those of you who know me at SANS, so therefore I don't have anything of much value to add to this. But I do chair the summit where we talk about these things. One thing I did notice as a lawyer several weeks ago in regards to ransomware is that the Department of Health and Human Services issued a fact sheet. It said that if you are a covered entity under HIPAA and you suffer a ransomware crypto attack, or your data has been encrypted, that you are deemed to have an incident for purposes of HIPAA, and it's presumed to be a breach for which you need to give notice to the patients. However, under Department of Health and Human Services interpretation of HIPAA, if you're a healthcare entity and you have encrypted data and it's an incident, then you need to conduct a risk assessment. If the risk assessment says basically low risk of harm to the patient, then you don't have to give notice to the patient. On the other hand, if your risk assessment says there's a high risk of harm to the patient because of this ransomware, then you do.
Please excuse the interruption,
Yeah.
Ben. It looks like Renato has joined us again.
Yes.
All right. Renato, please go ahead.
And Renato,
Okay, thank you.
please let me know. Just say next slide, please, and I will advance for you.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm honored to be here talking to you, Ben, and Jake and Carol. I first listened about this ransomware last Friday morning, as most of you. And shortly after, I started receiving a lot of calls from customers and other companies trying to figure out what was happening and trying to protect themselves. And it turns out that one of those companies wasn't just trying to prevent, but to respond to an incident caused by WannaCry. And we got involved with them, with their team, to try to respond to the incident. And the incident was first noticed by employees when they got back from lunch, like 1 p.m. We are here in Brazil, GMT -3. And they note that their machines got reboot and were showing an odd message on their screens. Exactly the WannaCry message. And they started opening lots of tickets in service desk. And due to the unusual call volume, service desk manager decided to report the problem to the IT manager. And after that, they both decided to visit one of the impacted server sectors into the company and notes that lots of machines was compromised, and it was clear that it was a worm inside of the network. It's spreading very fast, and the first action was to isolate
Renato, have you dropped? I'm not hearing Renato.
I don't hear him either. Renato, if you...
Yeah, Carol, this is Jake. I
Hey,
managed
Jake.
to get on it.
Yeah.
If in the meantime, while we're waiting on
Right.
him, yeah, I can try to answer
Right.
that question that Ben had earlier.
All right. Until we hear that Renato is back, then did you hear that question, Jake, about
I
jumping
did.
the air gap?
Yeah, I did hear it. I couldn't unfortunately hear the I didn't have the audio at the time.
I'm back, okay?
So,
Okay.
oh, perfect.
I'm back. Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Could you advance the slide?
There you go.
Yes. Thank you. And after the switches and routers were powered down, you can imagine the chaos inside of the company. We are talking about 10,000 machine company, and a lot of employees. The company is a huge company here in Brazil, in big cities here in Brazil. And that afternoon, they had to send employees home during what was supposed to be a normal day of work. And it was interesting that at that moment, the IT team and security teams were not aware of the global incident problem with WannaCry. So, Carol, could you please advance? Yes, and after that, they immediately start an incident response team. They called us at Morpheus Labs to contribute with them and to support them in this work. And the main objective of this incident response team was to recover the company operations, as the company was completely stopped at that moment. And their deliveries to customers and so on. It was a really big problem for them. And we started to work with them. Please, Carol, could you advance? Yes, and when we arrived there, we were aware of the WannaCry global problem already, and we started with 3 different work fronts. The first one was related to the AV solution. Unfortunately, the AV solution deployed in the company wasn't aware of WannaCry. They had no signatures yet to remove or to detect, and we had to make a decision to change the AV solution to another partner. The second work front was to apply the Windows patches, and here we faced the second problem. Unfortunately, WSUS wasn't operational at that moment, so we had to spend some time fixing the WSUS. And the third work front was to find out the incident extent inside of the company. So part of the team start visiting most critical company sectors and literally flagging the monitors with post-its. Could you advance, please? And we enter in the second part of the incident response. Now we were with a new AV company, AV partner, with a different solution that was able to detect the WannaCry. We were also aware of the communication, IOCs, like many of IP addresses that we feed firewall policies to block communication with malicious IP addresses. It is important noting here that we couldn't block the communication from machine side of the network with the kill switch domains, as Jake pointed out. And we were also aware of the infected machines, at least part of them, and the WSUS was now operational. So, Kara, please, could you advance? So, this is what we plan to do. The next step of this workforce was to, for each machine inside of the network, we follow the following actions. First, apply the Microsoft patch that was released in March. Next, deploy the new AV software in the machine to change the old one. And third, after that actions, to plug the machine into the network again. So we had to do this for each machine during the whole weekend. So a lot of work to do. Carol, please. But we were with a big problem yet related to infected machines. In fact, we were with 300 machines infected, and to recover them and return them to the users, we could return after we reinstall the OS and applications, for example. But it was almost impossible to do this from Sunday to Monday, as we were with a lot of machines infected, and we didn't have the full image to deploy. So, please, Claro, could you advance? So we had to change another plan. We choose a B plan, and we tried to clean up infected machines. We know that this is not a good solution in an incident like this one, but it was difficult to the company to continue its operation without a solution like this at that moment. And we learned that Microsoft released some different solutions to clean up WannaCry malware for different Windows versions. So, for example, for Windows 8.1 and 10, you could use Microsoft Windows Defender, Microsoft Security Essentials for Windows 7 and Vista, and for all Windows versions, we could use Microsoft Safety Scanner, MSS. So we decided to use the last one because it's a package, all-in-one package. You can install this package inside of infected machine and scan the file system without connection to the internet, for example. Carrick, could you advance? So to validate the strategy to remove the malware from the machine, we get a Windows machine into our lab and infected it with WannaCry. And after that, we use Microsoft Safety Scanner, and we did a full scan. And after it indicates that it removed the malware from the machine. And to validate, we reboot the machine, run again the MSS full scan, and to get a second opinion, we install Malwarebytes software, run against the file system, and there was no trace of WannaCry ransomware anymore into the file system. Can you advance, Cara? But as Jake told us, there is a side effect of WannaCry. It deploys double pulsar backdoor, and this is still a problem to us that moment. And regardless, we could validate the double pulsar was present in the environment. We did some tests with different tools. We came back to management and told to tell them what we had right now at that moment. And our decision was to get those restored or clear machines to users. If we could get them in an isolated environment, like a VLAN environment, until they could be reinstalled, full reinstalled. So it was a difficult decision because those machines were very important to the company. They wanted that machines to operate again. So we isolated that machines and returned them to some users. They could do part of their jobs while we, in parallel, started to reinstall all of those infected machines. Could you please advance, Carl? Yeah. Right now, the company is not fully operational. We are still working there. I'm working on this problem since last Friday through the whole weekend and until now. And we are advancing fast. We're starting fast the environment. We continue to investigate the infection vector. We don't know yet the source of the initial infection. I'm in touch with Johannes Jurich and Xavier Metes from SUN's Internet Storm Center, sharing some information and get some information from them to try to understand how this initial infection could be done. And our initial assumption is that it came with email phishing, but we didn't find any evidence until now. So we have a lot of lessons learned regarding this huge incident into this company, as every company that suffered like this one. In parallel to the incident response, we are working on some procedures and documents to improve the incident response of this company in the future incident. And I think one big point here is that companies like this one are not it's not common for them to deal with incidents like this one, big as this one. So it would be good if they could conduct some exercise like war games to simulate some incidents like this one and better coordinate the actions. So this was what I would like to share with you. Ben, I'm heading back to you.
Thank you, Renato. I have one question for you, and then we'll ask some questions from Jake. Someone asks, please tell us what AV product was initially used and what AV product it was replaced with in your incident.
Yeah, Ben, unfortunately I can't tell this information. I signed an
non-disclosure.
Non-disclosure NDA with this company, and unfortunately I can't disclose any information more than I'm doing right now in this slide.
That's fine. Those dang lawyers got in the way one more time. Okay. Okay. Back to you, Jake. So a number of people have wanted to hear about what you have to say about jumping air gap.
Yep. So I actually did a presentation at Distributech earlier this year, and I expressed my opinion, and this is based on a lot of work in the ICS community. Very rarely do we see true air gap, and so as people worry about and talk about the air gap, the mythical air gap, it very rarely exists. What they usually mean is we have some jump machines or bastion hosts or dual home machines, however you work that term. We hear them called cross-domain solutions, but basically there's a way for data to get in and out of that environment. And if there's not, my big concern becomes how are you patching that internal, that air-gapped environment? There has to be a way to get data in and out, and we really push towards formalizing what that method is so that people don't move data in and out of that environment using an authorized method. My concern here is coming back to the worm question, is it more likely? I think yes. And the reason I bring this up, we see Configure actually a lot today, even floating around a lot of our ICS environments, and it bothers me every time that I see it. And again, this is exploiting vulnerabilities from 2000 to 2008. I worry then here that again, particularly in these air-gapped environments or patches where machines are less likely to get patches, once it does find its way in, it's going to be extremely virulent inside of that area. And not to make another pitch for the Tearstopper tool, but if there's if you've got a case where you've got machines behind that you can't patch for whatever reason, just set this to start on auto run, and it'll at least stop the ransomware from screwing up your day. So anyway.
All right. I'm going to try to hit another question. I'm going to try to hit another question for you here, Jake. When a machine is infected, do you unplug it quickly, and or wait until IT comes along to start its investigation?
That's going to depend here, and largely on the type of attack. Here in this case with WannaCrypt, let's say you actually saw, and I'm not talking about the background that pops up that says, "Oops, your files have been encrypted." But if you actually saw the initial drop for whatever reason, right? You saw the unzip, you were looking in your downloads folder. It doesn't try to hide it, by the way, or doesn't do a good job of hiding it. If you've got the hidden files folders turned on, you're going to see it. It drops right into your downloads directory. If you saw that, that's the time right there to go ahead and pull the plug. I normally don't recommend this in incident response, but you may save a good number of your files just by pulling the plug. Although the counter to that is that most of the time I want to get a memory dump for additional analysis. Here, if I know that I'm seeing these .wcry files, WNRY files, if I'm looking at these, a bunch of files dropped, and I'm like, this looks like WannaCry, I might in that case go ahead, or probably would in that case, recommend pulling the plug. But this is a unique case, right? Again, your goal here is not to investigate. Your goal is to prevent it from encrypting any more files than it already has.
All right, we're running over time, Jake, but I'm going to, if you've got time, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Fair enough, no problem.
It's hard for me to know if this is a good question because it sounds so technical that I don't even know what I'm saying, but I'm going to read it. It says, is it possible to identify the kill switch without static analysis or using debugger? Is that a good question?
Yeah, sure. Is it possible to identify kill switch domain? So two parts to this answer. One, again, we already know there's a variant without a kill switch domain out there. I expect that this won't be used. This particular anti-sandboxing technique won't be used again. But is there a way to identify it without doing any debugger or static analysis? If you throw it into a malware sandbox, any of your normal Cuckoo sandbox, for instance, is free and open source. If we throw it into Cuckoo Sandbox, we're going to see the request to this domain. You'll see requests to lots of other domains, time.microsoft.com and updates. But again, you're going to see this call out, and you're going to say, yep, this is unique to this malware. But I have to caution in the future that we don't know what that domain is supposed to do. Right here in this case, it's just the kill switch, right? And registering it is fine, and you're good to go. In other cases, it might be a command and control domain, and again, we just don't know what it's used for in that case. But it's easy to identify just by running the malware inside of a sandbox.
All right, thank you very much. Some of us are running out of time. Jake, we really appreciate your input. Renato, it is really valuable for us to hear a perspective of somebody from another country dealing with this in a different type of environment. So both Jake and Renato, we really appreciate your assistance. Someone asked in the questions here, say something about, or what is this data breach summit? We'll have a summit in September, and it's about how to respond to incidences, especially more looking at things from the management's perspective and the challenges that management faces when crises like this emerge. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and turn it back over to Carol.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jake, Renato, and Ben, for your great presentation, which helps bring this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and archived SANS webcasts, including this one, you can visit sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope to have you back again for the next SANS webcast.